Referendum face-off. Taiwan's two major political parties step up the war of words ahead of Saturday's vote. A tightening embrace. Former adversaries Russia and China step up cooperation in the face of growing opposition from Western democracies. Speeding up the arms race, we look at the scramble to catch up with China and Russia's hypersonic missiles. Tearing down a painful reminder. Demolition begins on the remains of a building in southern Taiwan ravaged by a fatal fire. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party and main opposition, Kuomintang, are stepping up their campaigns ahead of 4 referendums on Saturday, with the two parties on opposite sides of each question. The DPP took its Central Standing Committee meeting to Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan on Wednesday, where President Tsai called for 4 no votes. She asked voters to trust in the government, highlighting the country's economic growth under her leadership. KMT Chair Eric Chu was campaigning in northern Taiwan's Taoyuan and Hsinchu, rallying with support for 4 yes votes. He urged people to use their ballots to express their displeasure with the DPP. To find out more about how politics is defining the referendum campaign, our reporter Rick Glowett spoke to Sydney Yue, an associate professor at Northeastern State University in the US.
In my opinion, the referendums are still related to people's identity politics. We want to use referendums as a way to express who we are, what value or memories we identify with, and what you want this country to be in the future. So it's about a national identity, ethnic identity, and the cultural identity. And so I would say, like a referendums, we are talking about certain issues. However, the nature of the voting means something different for Taiwanese people. The KNT rallies and the DPP rallies presented 2 divided memories about Taiwan. For example, the KNT rallies tried to bring their voters back to the 1980s, the good old time, and the economic miracle in the 80s. So they present all the symbols to show they are proud of the Republic of China. On the other hand, the DPP rallies also want their supporters to reflect on the past, but they focus on the celebrating the past 6 years under Tsai Ing-wen's administration. I think most importantly, the DPP emphasized the economic growth in the past 6 years in all the rallies.
Is it fair to say that these referendums are more to do with the political parties than to do with the issues themselves?
I think so. It's very obvious. I think the 4 issues on the surface, these issues are about food safety, environmental sustainability, energy issues, and tax money saving. But I think if you went to those rallies, you can tell that all the issues are packaged by very strong political language. And I think the voters like to hear that kind of a political language to show their identity. So in a sense, these issues on the ballot are not that important. Both parties use this opportunity to prepare for the next general election.
Are there any negative consequences to having this high frequency of referendums in Taiwan?
Depending on the results, the referendum's outcome might influence the U.S.-Taiwan relations. I think that's the first big concern from the DPP administration. And also, I think the result will tell certain messages to the world. How Taiwanese people want to participate in the global community and what kind of countries Taiwan would want to be. My observation in in its rallies, I just feel, wow, really we have two divided worlds in Taiwan, and people have different realities they imagine. I think the referendums probably are not necessary in current Taiwanese society. But it happens, and Taiwanese has to just deal with it.
Saturday's votes will cover 4 key questions. In our extended referendum coverage, our reporters will be giving us an in-depth look at each of the issues. One decides the fate of a mothballed nuclear power plant, and the other that of a liquefied natural gas terminal, which will have environmental repercussions. Also on the cards, a referendum on referendums and a vote to decide whether pork treated with the additive ractopamine should be imported.
Taiwan's main political parties have traded places on the issue of ractopamine in meat products, and analysts say it's a clear indication of just how politicized the additive has become here. But this vote is not just about pig guts on the floor of Taiwan's parliament. There are concerns that if the ban on ractopamine-treated pork is passed, it could have a major impact on Taiwan's trading relationship with its most important partner, the United States.
China's and Russia's presidents touted what they called a new model of cooperation in a 90-minute virtual summit, as both sides face deteriorating relations with the West. According to China's foreign ministry, Moscow has assured Beijing that it would be a staunch supporter of the Chinese government's position on Taiwan-related issues. Both leaders condemned last week's U.S. Democracy Summit, which neither country was invited to, but was attended by Taiwan. The meeting comes after the U.S. and its European allies threatened sanctions on Russia if it were to stage an invasion of Ukraine. Xi told Putin that he opposed attempts to drive a wedge between China and Russia.
中俄关系经受住各种风浪考验，展示出新的生机活力。我同总统先生通过多种方式就重大议题保持沟通和协调，共同为中俄关系把舵领航。双方正式宣布 中俄睦邻友好合作条约延期，并赋予其新的时代内涵。
Governments around the world are raising concern over China's push for greater influence in the Indo-Pacific and Russian aggression in Ukraine. But there is one type of threat that crosses all geopolitical borders and could make any country a potential target. Hypersonic missile tests from both China and Russia are forcing countries to consider making their own advancements in this new age of warfare. But what exactly makes them so unique, and exactly what are they capable of? Our reporter Jaime Ocon gives us a deeper look into the world of hypersonic missiles.
Like something out of science fiction, these weapons travel so fast that they challenge the laws of physics.
We define hypersonics as going as Mach 5 or above. Mach 1 is speed of sound, so it's going 5 times the speed of sound, at least, or above.
And this is making many countries nervous.
These new hypersonic missiles, they are very fast but also maneuverable, and they fly on an unpredictable path. So they're very difficult to defend against, and they're very difficult to determine what target they're going after until the last few seconds or so.
Hypersonic missiles like these are changing the way that countries look at war. Capable of flying at speeds of Mach 5 to Mach 10, it is estimated that these missiles can travel roughly 1,800 to 2,500 kilometers and can be armed with either a conventional or a nuclear warhead. Countries with suspected hypersonic missile programs include the US, North Korea, China, and Russia. Russia claimed it carried out a successful test launch of its Zircon hypersonic cruise missile in November, with deliveries of the missile to its Navy and entry into service expected as early as next year. But Russia isn't the only country working with hypersonics. China displayed its DF-17 hypersonic missile in a military parade in 2019, but little is known about the extent of its capabilities. The US has made similar advancements in hypersonics, but in areas such as space exploration and civil aviation, and has yet to apply it to a military function.
There's a limit to how far we can go speaking publicly about certain capabilities, but it's in the budget. You can read it for yourself. Our own pursuit of hypersonic capabilities is real. It's tangible, and we are absolutely working towards being able to develop that capability.
It appears a hypersonic arms race is underway, and the Biden administration is pushing to fund hypersonic-related research in their budget for next year.
From a technology point of view, I still think that the United States does have a big advantage. However, I will say that it appears that China and Russia has beat the U.S. In terms of deploying these missiles. But the U.S. is not far behind.
In terms of defending against such an attack, hypersonic missiles presents a new challenge. Compared to a ballistic missile that flies high up and takes a longer time to come back into Earth's atmosphere, hypersonic missiles fly lower and make it difficult for defense systems to intercept the coming threat.
Weapons. Engage Los Angeles with 2 GBIs, one from Fort Greely and one from Vandenberg.
Director, threat to Los Angeles, engaged.
Missile defense simulations like this are preparing for the worst. If such a strike was carried out, countries around the world would have little time to react. So what does that mean for Taiwan? Well, analysts say that one possibility is China using hypersonic missiles in the initial stages of a war, especially against nations that may come to Taiwan's aid.
It's going to push them back potentially, a couple of thousand kilometers or so, because they don't want to be within the range of these DF-17s. There could be some challenges for Taiwan if there are any air missile defenses where the Chinese might be able to use these hypersonic missiles to defeat air defenses.
This year, Taiwan has boosted its defense spending and made a push to upgrade its arsenal. There are questions whether Taiwan, or any country for that matter, would be able to stop a hypersonic strike. But what is certain is that revelations of China's and Russia's weapons capabilities are a wake-up call for the U.S. Kaohsiung and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
A German naval vessel is sailing through the South China Sea for the first time in almost 20 years. Though mostly international waters, the South China Sea is claimed almost entirely by China. This puts Beijing at odds with neighbouring countries with competing claims. The German deployment comes as Western nations have expressed concern over Beijing's increasing aggressions in the region. Lithuania has pulled its diplomatic staff out of China as relations between the two countries worsen amid tensions over Taiwan. Lithuania's government says their embassy in Beijing will operate remotely following the departure of the diplomats and their family members on Wednesday. Beijing downgraded diplomatic ties with the Baltic nation in November after a representative office with the name Taiwan opened in Vilnius. Lithuania's foreign ministry says that China had demanded Lithuania also downgrade its embassy in Beijing, which left the legal status of their diplomats uncertain.
Labai griežtai noriu pasakyti, kad tai nėra ambasados uždarimas. Diplomatija grįžta konsultacijoms dėl to, kad yra išsiskyrusios nuomonės tarp mūsų ir Kinijos, kokios yra galimybės pakeisti pavadinimą atstovybės. Kinija siekia, kad Lietuva pakeistų pavadinimą į tokį, koks net nėra numatytas mūsų įstatymuose.
And the Taiwan Foreign Ministry has expressed Taiwan's support for Lithuania.
我们仅向立陶宛政府以及他们的外交决策的这个阶层表达我方最崇高的敬意。我们也重申，台湾会持续跟立陶宛站在一起，我们会结合所有民主伙伴的力量跟相关的一个资源，来展现民主阵营的一个团结跟一个韧性。那我们政府同时也呼吁我国的国内的企业，还有台湾全体人民，我们在这个时候更应该要鼎力来支持立陶宛。我们要跟立陶宛发展一个更紧密、更友好，而且互惠互利的一个合作关系。
Matas Maldakis is the chair of the Lithuanian Parliament's Taiwan Friendship Group and member of the Lithuanian Cross-Party Group for Ukraine. Speaking to me from Vilnius, he expressed the importance of European Union countries standing together to counter the influence of authoritarian regimes, especially with Lithuania's experience with China.
Lithuania is just an example for them to show to other countries who would cooperate with Taiwan in a sense. It's just an example of what will happen to other countries who wanna want to have a relationship with democracies. This is what you get when you deal with a country that is authoritarian and there is no rule of law. Just because of their political will, you can break all your international commitments and do what you do with Lithuania. China is not fighting Lithuania. China is fighting European Union.
A China and a Russia that unite, what does this mean?
Now, Russia and China being afraid, because you have to understand what they are doing, it's not from strength, it's from the position of fear what they are doing. They understand that this model of the world is ending. They have to unite to save their system of governance, authoritarian system of governance. It's about the whole Western idea of democracy. And we should coordinate ourselves also more. Democracies have to get to the challenge, coordinating their relationship more and understanding that they are dependent on China and on Russia in the gas, talking about markets and exports, and to take action of not being so dependent on those.
You believe that there is a similarity, a parallel between Ukraine and Taiwan.
The authoritarian regime, how they think. We must understand how their modus operandi is very simple. When you don't have election, how you create legitimacy for your own people, showing that everything is very good in your country, that you are winning, that your economic is the best in the world, and showing that you can win wars without fight.
Can I ask you what you think, a united Russia and China might mean for Taiwan?
When Biden administration came to power, what happened very soon after he came to power is that Russia started an exercise, military exercise near Ukrainian border. Also, China started a lot of action near Taiwan in those similar days. So what that shows, they was coordinating and they was checking how the administration would to deal with two crises at once. It shows that it's a big pressure for you guys, but in a similar way, that means it's a bigger pressure for us. And this is what we always talked about. Now, looking at the globe, this democracy is far away, we can close our eyes. No, what is happening in your region depends, it get a lot to do and a big effect what is happening in our region. We have to understand that. And this is why we need to work together.
European leaders are taking a firm stance against Russia as fears mount that the Kremlin is planning an invasion of Ukraine. On the eve of an EU summit on the issue, the European Commission President said that the bloc could scale up sanctions and adopt unprecedented measures with serious consequences for Russia. The German Chancellor and UK Prime Minister issued similar warnings. Western intelligence services believe up to 100,000 Russian troops have amassed near the Ukrainian border. Authorities in Kyiv say Moscow could launch a military offensive next month, but the Kremlin denies it is planning an attack. A visiting delegation of French lawmakers has met President Taoyuan. They're looking to strengthen cooperation between France and Taiwan in semiconductors and renewable energy. The delegation is led by François de Rugy, the head of the France-Taiwan Parliamentary Friendship Group. It is the second such visit from the French Parliament in less than 3 months. The latest trip is seen as a sign of Taiwan's improving relations with the EU despite opposition from Beijing. Coming up after the break, we travel to Hualien to a very special tournament, putting young indigenous baseball players on the pitch. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken cut short his 4-day trip to Southeast Asia after a journalist travelling with his party tested positive for COVID-19. Blinken made stops in Indonesia and Malaysia and was set to travel on to Thailand. He expressed his deep regret to the Thai Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister for the sudden change of plans. The tour was intended to shore up ties and build confidence in Washington's commitment to the Indo-Pacific region. United Kingdom has seen daily COVID-19 cases soar to a new record high as the Omicron variant drives the latest surge. Nearly 79,000 cases were recorded across the UK on Wednesday. The previous record was around 68,000 in January. The country's chief medical officer, Chris Whitty, warns case numbers will continue to set new records in the next few weeks. He says the public should limit their social mixing over the Christmas period. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has resisted calls for tougher restrictions for the holiday season, but urged people to get a vaccine booster shot. Taiwan has reported another local case of COVID-19. It's only the second domestic transmission in more than a month. The patient is a woman in her 80s who fell ill with stomach issues and a high fever on December 15th. She is fully vaccinated with AstraZeneca. 2 close contacts of the patient are now undergoing home quarantine. Health authorities say the patient's test results suggest that it's an old infection. Taiwan's Council of Agriculture has come up with a new way to export fruits after a round international bans. Earlier this year, several countries banned fruit imports from the island due to insects found in the shipments. Our reporter Sandy Chi has more.
Boxes of what appear to be custard apple ice cream are being sealed, ready to be shipped to Japan. This is part of a new initiative by the Council of Agriculture to help the fruit industry against import bans imposed on it by several countries, turning fresh fruits into frozen food products. Earlier this year, China banned imports of Taiwanese pineapples and sugar and wax apples, creating an excess of 10,000 tons of fresh fruits in Taiwan. In response, the Council of Agriculture worked with processing and distribution companies to push domestic and overseas sales through advertising campaigns and tourism promotion. The idea to turn fruits into frozen products came from a cross-border e-commerce company, which pointed out that there's a market for it in Japan.
他们就是有这样的习惯，在今年冬天呢，我们凤梨世家冷冻全国，也成为他们非常有话题性的一个冬天的冰品。
Taiwan is also preparing to export frozen pineapples and custard apples to other countries, including Malaysia and Singapore. Meanwhile, New Zealand has said it will soon lift its import ban on Taiwanese mangoes. The ban was imposed after live fly larvae were found in a shipment of lychees and mangoes from Taiwan in June. The agreement to lift the ban on Taiwan mangoes comes with the condition of a quarantine process. The two governments are still in discussion about resuming the importation of Taiwanese lychees. Hopes are high that the fruit industry will soon bounce back from its woes. Aznaya Zhou and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Taoyuan Airport, Taiwan's main gateway, is trialling a facial recognition system. Passengers scan their face and present a passport either at check-in or at immigration, but not at other security checks. The facial scan takes just 2 seconds to complete. As well as speeding up immigration lines, the airport hopes the system will help fight COVID-19 by minimizing contact between staff and passengers. Demolition work has begun at the site of a deadly fire in Taiwan's southern city of Kaohsiung. 46 people died in a blaze at a commercial and residential building in October. It's regarded as the worst fire in the city's history. The building has since been covered with iron sheets and debris netting. The incident was a catalyst for the government to beef up building regulations. City authorities plan to turn the site into a park, but local residents want a police station there instead. The demolition of the 41-year-old building is expected to take 4 months. Taiwan's professional baseball season has wrapped up, but the annual Care Cup is just getting started. It's an annual event that brings together hundreds of school-age players from the country's indigenous groups. Bing Wang takes us to eastern Taiwan, where this special tournament is now underway.
It's a beautiful day here in Hualien, which means it's a perfect day for baseball. And that's exactly why we're here. We're at the 28th annual Care Cup tournament, where 47 teams will face off to see who will be crowned the kings of baseball. What's so special about this tournament? The teams are made up of elementary and junior high players from Taiwan's many indigenous groups. Baseball is one of the most popular sports in Taiwan. Our Little League teams have won 17 championships. We've won top prizes at major tournaments. And the men's national team is ranked 3rd in the world by the World Baseball and Softball Confederation. Many of the past participants of the Care Cup have gone to bigger and better things, including representing Taiwan in international tournaments or even playing in baseball's biggest stage, Major League Baseball. And these kids hope to follow in their footsteps one day.
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We leave you with images of Lapland in Finland, Santa Claus's hometown. Tourists are returning despite the pandemic. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.